Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Testa and Neal, Keep It Real, right here on WWSU 106.9 FM and our YouTube channel. I'm Shea Neal, alongside with me, Parker Testa. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you all have survived to get to the weekend. We have a big-time show for you today. The stove is hot. There's been a lot of big deals across baseball and many more to come today before the deadline as well. NBA draft happened, came and went. We're gonna, we reacted to the final mock draft yesterday. Well, today we're gonna react to what actually happened in the lottery and go over the first 15 picks. If we like the fit, if we like the player, kind of stuff like that. Hour number 2, it is Friday, so we're gonna be doing our ACC college football preview. What a show we have lined up for you today. We hope you're excited. Parker, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Like you said, stove scorching hot right now. And we're going to get into a lot. Lots of trades went down today. Lots of big trades went down today. And then the NBA draft is going on, and then we're going to talk about the ACC. So it's going to be a good one.
It sure is. We don't have enough time to mess around, so we might as well just get right into it. So let's start off with the first trade of the day. It was the Toronto Blue Jays acquiring Brad Hand from Washington. Washington had a very busy day. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Brad Hand has not had his best season in his first year in Washington. He's had an ERA about 3.5 this season. But he will go to Toronto hoping to help out that bullpen. He's a 3-time All-Star. The Blue Jays bullpen's been crushed with injuries to Kirby Yates, Julian Merriweather, David Phelps, AJ Cole, Carl Edwards, Tyler Chatwood, and Anthony Castro. He was the Nationals, I should say, get Riley Adams, a catching prospect who's 25 years old, and he has an 858 OPS in AAA. So he's the number 17 prospect in the Blue Jays system. I think this is a nice trade for both sides. The Nationals didn't really have a need for a closer anymore. They're not really competing anymore. And they get a nice, intriguing catcher that could maybe replace a Yan Gomes as their catcher, their backstop moving forward. And Brad Hand hasn't had his best season by any means, but he's still a guy with playoff experience. He's still a lefty with good stuff, and he'll definitely be a big piece for that Toronto bullpen as they make a push for a wild card spot.
Yeah, he will. Brad Hand is, he's been one of the more consistent relievers in throughout his career. He hasn't had the best year, to this point. But I think that the Blue Jays are getting a pretty before this year, pretty consistent guy. And I think that they're gonna use him, as they need. Maybe they can kind of whip him back into shape. Who knows? But I think this is a good trade for both sides. Riley Adams is a pretty, he's a solid catcher, and he made his MLB debut earlier this year. It was rough, but he's had major league time, but he's done well in AAA. So maybe we'll see him kind of do a little bit better in Washington if he gets called up.
No doubt about it. Next trade we're going to talk about today. A trade between the two teams in Chicago, North and South Side deal. The White Sox get right-handed pitcher Ryan Tepera in exchange for left-handed pitcher Bailey Horn going back to the Cubs. Tepera goes to the South Side as the White Sox get some bullpen help. Tepera's posted a 2.91 ERA with 50 strikeouts in 43 1/3 innings. The White Sox part with Horn, a 5th-round pick in 2020 out of Auburn. He struggled since he got promoted to High A earlier this month. He had a 13.09 ERA with 11 walks in 11 innings. He's the White Sox number 23 prospect. He has good stuff, still kind of working out some control issues. So the Cubs take a chance on a lefty with good stuff, hope they can develop him. And the White Sox get Tepera, who's a free agent at the end of the year, but has been a really solid reliever for the Cubs this year. I like this move for the Sox. Good sinker, good cutter. Good changeup for Tepera. He's got 3 really good pitches. He'll be a nice piece for that 7th and 8th inning in Chicago, kind of setting up Liam Hendricks, helping out Aaron Bummer, helping out some of those other guys in that pen. And for the Cubs, they gave up a reliever that was on an expiring deal and got a left-handed pitcher with pretty good stuff. So another trade where I think both teams did pretty well. But this is a big get for the White Sox. They definitely needed bullpen help. Tepera is not exactly the biggest name on the market for relievers, but he's a dang good one.
Yeah, he is, and he's a solid veteran here. He has a 2.91 ERA with 50 Ks this season, so he's been solid for the Chicago Cubs, and so yeah, the Cubs needed bullpen help, so they get it here with Tepera, and as for Horn, the White Sox are getting a promising prospect in Horn. He was called up to High A. He struggled in the High A, but maybe we'll see him kind of work out the kinks and get better as we go forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So the White Sox do get that bullpen help for a stretch run, and the Cubs get the Cubs kind of kickstart this rebuild. We'll get into it today, but they also traded one of their other core pieces, and a couple other players that I think will be traded either later tonight or later this afternoon, I should say, or maybe even while we're on. Another trade that happened today, I like this one a lot for the Seattle Mariners. They get Diego Castillo from the Tampa Bay Rays for right-handed pitcher JT Chargois and third baseman Austin Shenton. 2 days after they traded Kendall Graveman to the Astros to get Abraham Toro, which a lot of Mariners players weren't happy about that. Graveman's had a great year, and they thought that, why are they getting rid of one of our better guys if we're making a run? The hard-throwing righty Castillo has picked up 14 saves this season with the Rays, a 2.72 ERA, 49 strikeouts in 36 innings, so he's still a little fresh compared to guys like Tepera. Chargois owns a 3 ERA this year across 31 relief appearances and just saw a streak of 8 consecutive scoreless outings snapped. Shenton was the 17th ranked prospect in the Mariners system. I'll tell you why I love this trade for the Mariners, though. They signed Chargois to a minor league contract, owed him veterans minimum. He had a really good stretch of about 4 to 6 weeks that made his numbers look really, really good. And they turned that into Diego Castillo, who's one of the nastiest relievers in baseball. This was a great move by Jerry Dipoto. And as much as I know the Mariners, clubhouse loved Kendall Graveman, my honest opinion, Diego Castillo is an upgrade over Kendall Graveman.
Yeah, he is. And he's a solid player. He's had 14 of his saves this season. 270 RA. He's been solid, for the Rays. So, and as for the Mariners, they send away Chargois and Shenton, but both those guys, I think it's worth it. You get back a solid reliever in Castillo.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think the Mariners did a great job here, and walk away with a reliever that I think makes their bullpen significantly better. So a little bit later on this afternoon, we have 4 more trades we got to go over here to start the show. And that's just, for now. I mean, we could still have more as the day goes on, so who knows. But your Dodgers were very busy today, Parker. We'll get into the big one a little bit later. But this was the first one. They acquire left-handed pitcher Danny Duffy from the Kansas City Royals, as well as cash considerations in exchange for a player to be named later. Duffy famously tweeted, "Bury me a Royal," back in 2017, but times have changed a little bit since then. Now 32, Duffy owned the 10-5 rights by spending his entire career in KC, which allowed him to veto any trade, but he waived those rights to join a reigning World Series champion team that has postseason hopes. He's also a California native. The Dodgers made this trade knowing they won't see Duffy for a while. He's not expected back until about late August, but with clear holes to fill in the starting rotation after injuries to May and inconsistencies from some other guys in that rotation, Los Angeles pressed ahead with the bigger October picture in mind. I think this was a good move. It's just a player to be named later. It'll probably just be some random minor leaguer. And Danny Duffy's a really solid pitcher. Not a hard thrower at all. He's more of a cutter, changeup, curveball kind of guy. But when you have a lot of guys that throw hard in that Dodgers rotation, such as Walker Buehler, such as other guys like Brusdar Gratterall, like Julio Urias, like a lot of flamethrowers on this Dodgers pitching staff. I think Duffy could be a really nice change of pace kind of pitcher that causes a lot of swings and misses and gets a lot of hitters off balance. So I think this was a good move by Andrew Friedman.
I do too. And Duffy, like you said, they need some starter help with losing May earlier in the year. And with this whole Bauer mess that's going on, they've been pretty slim on starters. So they needed to bring in another starter here. And they did that twice today. And Duffy's a solid guy. When they iron out their rotation, if they do get Bauer back, I don't think they will, but if they do get him back, I think they can use Duffy as like a long reliever type role. But I like this one a lot for the Dodgers.
I do too. Now's where it gets interesting. The last three we saved here for the end were all big moves. One involved a guy that we expected to be moved. We just didn't really know where. One involved a guy that we really didn't expect to be moved. And one involved a guy that we expected to be moved, but he was thrown in with a guy we didn't expect to be moved. So it was really weird. But let's get to this one. The New York Yankees have a new first baseman, and his name is Anthony Rizzo. They trade for Rizzo, get him from the Cubs in exchange for right-handed pitcher Alexander Vizcaino and outfielder Kevin Alcantara. On the same day that the Yankees added Joey Gallo, they also acquire Anthony Rizzo. The Yankees' biggest rival, the Boston Red Sox, were heavily linked to Rizzo as recently as Thursday, but the Yankees swooped in with a deal that sends their number 9 and number 12 prospects to the Cubs. Chicago is reportedly paying the remainder of Rizzo's salary, helping the Yankees stay under the competitive balance tax and leaving the Bronx Bombers the flexibility to make more moves before the deadline today. This is a good move. I expect them to try and move Voit in a trade, maybe get another reliever or another pitcher with that move. But Rizzo is going to be the starting first baseman moving forward. And this was a good piece to balance Joey Gallo, because Joey Gallo, as good as he is with great power, great arm, good ability of drawing walks, he also swings and misses a lot. Anthony Rizzo is a very mature hitter, very patient hitter. He draws a lot of walks, but he also makes contact, has a much better average than Gallo, still good power. He's a great defensive first baseman. This was a great move for the Yankees. And when they're finally back and healthy, having Rizzo sandwiched in between guys like Torres, Judge, Stanton, and Gallo, this Yankees lineup definitely got a lot better in the last 36 hours.
Yeah, it has. I thought they might be done with after getting Gallo, but I was wrong. Cashman is managing for his job here. If both these trades happen and the Yankees miss the playoffs,
it's over. Yeah.
Oh boy. So this one's big, we talked about it earlier. Rizzo was the last guy of those four guys.
He's Mr. Cub. It's hard to see. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought Baez would go first, followed by Kimbrel and then Bryant and then Rizzo. But the opposite of that happened, and Rizzo's on the way to the Bronx, where I think he's going to play well. I don't know what they're going to do with, they're going to put Rizzo at first base, have Gallo, in right. But this one was, crazy to say the least.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I definitely, as a Reds fan that has seen Anthony Rizzo for a long time, obviously he's been in Chicago for 11 years. I never really expected seeing Rizzo in any other uniform, and it's going to be weird to see him in pinstripes, but I think he's going to play well in New York. Just like Gallo, left-handed power hitter, he's going to do very well at Yankee Stadium. And the Yankees, Luke Voit, I have nothing against Luke Voit. I think he's a solid player, but Anthony Rizzo is definitely an upgrade over Luke Voit.
He is, he definitely has a better bat than Luke Voit. Luke Voit's a solid defensive first baseman, but he can't hit the ball. So I think you get a heck of an upgrade here with Rizzo. This one was fun. The Yankee lineup was kind of decimated here a little bit, with some injuries to some guys. So I think adding Gallo and Rizzo makes them, certainly a better team, no doubt about it. And when they get some of these injured guys back, I would be surprised to see the Yankees make a run at the playoffs. they're pretty far back in this division, but they're the Yankees. They'll find their way in there, and if they don't, it's more than likely game over here for Cashman.
It is. Let's move on to the next trade, which will be that the Boston Red Sox acquired outfielder Kyle Schwarber from the Nationals in exchange for right-handed pitcher Aldo Ramirez. Following the Rizzo deal going to the Bronx, the Red Sox countered with a move to get a slugger of their own in Schwarber. Schwarber had an incredible run where he hit 16 home runs in 18 games from mid-June to late June before hurting his hamstring. Overall, Schwarber's hitting .253 this year with an OPS over 900 and 25 home runs. Ramirez was the 19th ranked prospect in the Red Sox system, and he has a 2.03 ERA in 8 starts in Class A this year. So still young, still has probably a couple more years of development in the minor leagues, but Nationals get an intriguing pitcher that's had a really strong year. And the Red Sox get a guy who I think is really going to help their offense, and that's Kyle Schwarber. It'll be interesting to see how they use him because the outfield for the Boston Red Sox is really good with Verdugo, Kike Hernandez, and Hunter Renfroe. I don't see them they're not taking out Verdugo. I don't see them taking out Renfroe. And I think Kike still plays almost every day as well. So I think the most likely thing, and I don't know if this is a possibility or not because I don't know much about Schwarber's history, they might be hoping that they can teach Kyle Schwarber to play first base. I think that's what would make sense.
It would. And Dahlbeck's a solid player, but Schwarber, if he can play first, he can be better at first than Dahlbeck is. So I like this trade for the Red Sox. I was expecting them to get either Gallo or Rizzo, whichever guy that the Yankees got, they would go after the other guy. But
got both.
They're going down to plan C and D because the Yankees got both those guys. So,
well, if Schwarber is your plan C, I mean, that's not a half bad plan C. This dude's raking the ball, or this dude's mashing the ball this year.
No, not at all. I think Gallo was plan A for the Red Sox. That fell through. Rizzo was plan B. That fell through. So they get Schwarber here, so who's, like you said, not a bad plan C here. So I think he'll play well here in Boston. He's a lefty, and that short right field fence is going to be, they're going to have a lot of fun here with Schwarber at Fenway.
All right. Well, I'll introduce this last one, and I know you have a lot of thoughts on it, so I'll let you take the lead when I'm done introducing it. But the Los Angeles Dodgers acquire right-handed pitcher Max Scherzer and shortstop Trey Turner from the Nationals in exchange for catcher Keibert Ruiz, right-handed pitcher Josiah Gray, right-handed pitcher Gerardo Carrillo, and outfielder Donovan Casey. One of the biggest trades in the recent history of baseball. I shouldn't say in the history of baseball. In the recent history of baseball, the Dodgers shocked the baseball world and land the 3-time Cy Young Award winner Max Scherzer, as well as Trey Turner, an all-star shortstop, on Thursday night. The return to Washington is a large prospect haul, including Carrillo and Casey, a pair of mid-range prospects, the Dodgers' number 1 prospect, Keibert Ruiz, and their number 2 prospect, Josiah Gray. I think you and I are in agreement. Like I said, I'm going to let you take the reins. But even though Keibert's their number 1 prospect, I think the real big part of this deal for the Nats is Josiah Gray. Josiah Gray is an outstanding young pitcher, and I think Keibert's going to be very good. And the Nationals now getting Riley Adams in that trade with the Blue Jays and Keibert Ruiz. It's looking very much like Yan Gomes is about to be playing his last few games in DC over the next couple months. And moving forward, they'll have Keibert as the starter and Adams as the backup. So a young, exciting catching duo in DC. And sooner rather than later, we'll see Gray in that rotation as well. But I know you're the Dodgers fan, so I'll let you take the lead. What are your thoughts? Scherzer and Trey Turner are Dodgers, but it was not cheap.
Not cheap at all. And I saw this tweet from Passan earlier that the Dodgers are in on Scherzer, and I figured they would be, but I didn't think they'd be in on Scherzer and Trey Turner. I saw that, and I immediately just did one of these. I said yesterday, don't sell the farm. Don't sell the farm. What do? They sell the farm. Ruiz, I'm okay with because they have catching depth with Barnes and Will Smith, and I'm sure they have other catching prospects that they'll have be brought up here shortly. Josiah Gray's the one that really hurts, and I honestly think he should have been the number one prospect ahead of Ruiz. He's going to be really good. And keep in mind, all Reds fans remember this trade. The Yasiel Puig, Kyle Farmer deal that Matt Kemp, all those guys that sent Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray to the Dodgers in that deal.
Jeter down. It was we didn't have, you drafted Keibert. Dodgers drafted Keibert. We sent you Josiah Gray and Jeter Downs, and we got Kemp, Wood, Puig, and Farmer. But you took home the Bailey contract. So yeah, we gave you Gray, but we can't take credit for Keibert. That's on you.
Right. But what I was going on to say was that trade has given the Dodgers Mookie Betts, has given them Scherzer, has given them Turner. Here's the issue I have with this. What are you going to do after this year? I know both Scherzer and Turner have another year on their contract after this, and maybe getting Scherzer and Danny Duffy puts an end to this Bauer drama. Maybe we'll see Bauer, be somewhere else if he even is in baseball next year. I think he will be, but maybe this puts an end to the Bauer drama in LA. But it sure costed a lot. And if you lose in October after this, oh boy, it's going to be rough for not only the Dodgers fans, but for all of you who listen to this station, because I will not be happy by any means. And so this is like this says, one of the biggest blockbusters in recent memory for baseball. So this is going to be interesting. Dave Roberts is key here. How does he use these guys? Who leads off? I still think Betts leads off. But if your rotation is Kershaw, they're going to get Kershaw back. As well as Betts, they're going to be coming off the injured list. So your rotation will be, I think, Scherzer's your ace, so he's going to be your one. You're going to have Scherzer, Kershaw, Buehler, right now Danny Duffy, and Urias. So this rotation is going to be very good. But the question is, what do they do with Seager after this year? They are flying through luxury tax right now. And Turner's made it known that he wants to play another position. So it looks like he's going to play second base for the Dodgers. So you're
he's got obviously Turner's got elite speed, elite mobility, but he doesn't have the best arm in the league. His defensive ability at shortstop kind of has a ceiling just because he doesn't have an arm like Tatis or even like a Bogarts or a Correa, where Correa and Tatis and Bogarts make their fair share of errors, but they have absolute cannons where if they fumble the ball for a second, they have the kind of arm strength to recover. Trey Turner doesn't necessarily have that. So Trey Turner, even though he has the mobility to get to almost every ball, I think he'd be a lot better at second base personally.
Right. And so your middle infield is Muncy, Turner, Seager, and Justin Turner. And then your outfield is it stays the same with Bellinger, Betts, and Pollock. So as well as Chris Taylor's there as well. So Chris Taylor, he's been playing outfield, he's been playing second base, but he's going to go back to what he is, great at in that super utility role.
Yeah. I think we could still see him. I think we could still see him play a lot of left field because he's had a really, really good year. But
He has, and that was the Kike Hernandez role before he went to Boston. So this, I'm on a wait and see basis with this. Am I glad they got him? Sure, they're fantastic players. Some of the best at their positions. For me, you just give up way too much.
Yeah,
I would have been okay with one of these guys, depending on what that deal was. But both of them is crazy.
yeah.
So I'm done. And this it's insane. Like we said at the top of the show, scorching hot stove right now, and the Dodgers made a lot of moves today, and they might not be done. I hope they're done because I don't want to give up anything else. But this was one of the crazier ones for sure.
It was. And I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory with almost every trade, but I think the Dodgers win this deal if they win the World Series, and if they don't, it's gonna be something that they probably regret looking back, because I don't see them being able to retain Scherzer with all the salaries they already have. So this is basically a rental of Max Scherzer. And then what's either going to happen is they keep Turner and they let Seager walk, or they extend Seager and they let Turner walk. So you're going to have to pick between those two as well. I think Seager would come cheaper, honestly, but I think you could argue that Trey Turner is the better player. I don't know.
That's
It's really
that's
close.
yeah, that's the key here. If they don't win the World Series, this is going to be, Friedman's going to be
Well, yeah.
appalled.
If they don't win the World Series, this is going to look bad, because either Seager or Turner is going to leave, Scherzer is going to leave. Keibert Ruiz is a future All-Star catcher, and Josiah Gray looks like he could be the ace of, he could be the next Max Scherzer in DC.
Yeah, and this is
Believe
key
me,
here
I know
because
the Reds drafted Josiah Gray. I was in your shoes when we traded him to the Dodgers. I was like, whoa, we got rid of Homer's contract and we got some good players that can help, but we gave up Josiah Gray. So now we've both been in this position before.
right, and keep in mind the only player left on your roster from that trade is Kyle Farmer,
And he's a
and
stud.
yeah, and that he's the last guy I expected would pan out in that trade, but
Farmer's got like a 950 OPS in the month of July.
right, and this is personally, if I had to pick between Turner and Seager, I'm taking Seager. Um, and like and it's for the exact reason that you said he'll be cheaper. I think he's, and Trey Turner is certainly an all-star caliber shortstop and an infielder, but I personally want to keep Seager around. I don't think that they're going to be able to retain one, if not both of these guys. Trey Turner's made it known that he doesn't want to play for a West Coast team. So I think if they get anybody back, it's Scherzer, but that's not going to come cheap by any means.
No.
The Dodgers have one of the highest payrolls in baseball, if not the highest payroll in baseball. This is a mess, to say the least. And I'm sure more details will be worked out as we go further here. But yeah, I just don't know what to say anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a weird.
It's been a weird day, to say the least.
It has. And by the way, I goofed and I forgot about the trade that just happened like an hour ago. But the Padres acquired Daniel Hudson as well from the Washington Nationals. Hudson is a 34-year-old reliever with a 2.2 ERA this year across 32 innings. He's a huge piece of that Nationals team that won the World Series in 2019. The Padres get a big boost to their bullpen and only gave up a one prospect to get it, a pitcher that I believe was like their number 17 prospect or whatever. Great move for the Padres. Hudson's an absolute beast. I'm a little upset because I wanted the Reds to get Daniel Hudson. I wanted him to be the last piece that they added to this bullpen, but Um, a lot of it looks like the majority of the really strong bullpen arms are pretty much gone. But the Reds could still use a super utility role kind of player and a bat off the bench. And they were at the Nationals game today, which tells me that they're looking at Josh Harrison. So that's definitely a player I would welcome. I like Josh Harrison a lot. But a little bit upset that they couldn't get Daniel Hudson because I think he's an absolute stud.
Yeah, he is. And I'm sure Padres fans were very upset that the Dodgers spurned them and got Scherzer and Turner, or got Scherzer because I know they were a front runner for a while today before the Dodgers came out of nowhere and acquired them. But am I happy that the Padres didn't get Scherzer? Of course. But they had Hudson, who's been a solid reliever in Washington. So, I think the Padres, we talked about it. They needed a hit, they needed a bat, they needed a reliever, they needed a starter. They got the reliever, they got the bat. But they'll be okay without the starter. And I said earlier this week that if you can get two of those three, you're in good shape. And they did that. So, credit to San Diego and what they did today. They got a quality reliever in Hudson, and I think he's going to do well for them.
Yeah, he is. All right, well, let's move on. Those are all the trades that we know of now. If anything breaks live, we will obviously talk about it. But Bryant's still available. Donaldson potentially still available. Barrios sounds like he could get moved. That's sounding like more and more of a possibility. Now that Scherzer's gone, Parker, a team that I'm really looking for to be aggressive with, guys like Barrios, maybe a guy like John Means, is the Angels. I think they want a top tier starter, and I think Barrios could be the guy that they go after to pair with Ohtani. We'll see. But Bryant's still out there, Baez still out there, Story's still out there. I think Story. I don't think we'll be able to talk about Story live because I think he'll get traded at like 357. But a lot of big names still out there, and I'm really excited to see how it all plays out. But let's move on. NBA draft was last night. We talked about the last mock and where we could potentially see some guys. Now we know where guys ended up, so let's break down the lottery. Let's talk about where guys ended up. Number one overall, the Detroit Pistons, to no surprise, have selected Cade Cunningham, point guard, Oklahoma State. Cunningham has been the projected number one pick since the day he committed to Oklahoma State back in 2019. He averaged 20 points a game with 6 rebounds and almost 4 assists in his freshman season. He joins a Pistons team that's just in desperate need of a brand new star, and he'll have every single chance in the world to become the face of the Pistons.
Yeah, and we all saw this coming. Cade Cunningham was, the surefire number one pick here. And he's going to be good in Detroit. He's a very big point at 6'8", and he has his long arms, wingspan over 7 feet. So he's he has outstanding physical ability. He can, and he's worked on his shooting, really well. He's worked on his mid-range, his perimeter shooting, and he shoots the free throw really well. So This is a great pick, and I expect him to do really good things in Detroit.
Yeah, me too. He's a really, really good player. I kind of knew from day. I mean, it was pretty apparent from the beginning that the Pistons were very attracted to what he offered on the court. And they get the job. They don't mess around. They take Cade Cunningham. He's going to be, like this says, the next, star of Detroit Pistons basketball. And they really haven't had one of those stars. They traded for Blake Griffin, but Blake Griffin never really was what they wanted in Detroit. So who was the last star the Pistons had? It might be, like a Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton kind of type. It's been almost 15 years since the Pistons have had a star.
Yeah, it has. And surprising because we expected Detroit. We've always expected Detroit to be good, but they haven't been. Here recently. So this is a great pick for Detroit. I think Cade Cunningham is going to be a strong player for them, and maybe this gets the attention of some free agents.
It definitely could. Let's move on to the number 2 pick. The Houston Rockets have selected Jalen Green, a shooting guard out of the G League with the Ignite, with the 2nd overall pick. He was the number 1 player in the 2021 recruiting class, but he opted to join the G League and showcase his skills against different talent. He averaged 18 points a game with 4 rebounds and almost 2 steals while shooting 46% from the field. He's very young, an excellent athlete and offensive-minded player. He should provide, I should say, an instant scoring boost for a Rockets team that definitely needs offense. And Houston will hope that Green can ultimately emerge as the face of the franchise after the James Harden era. Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham was the safest pick in this draft without a doubt. Jalen Green's going to need a little bit of development, a little bit of work, but he definitely has a massively high ceiling. He could end up being very easily the best player in this class.
He could, and he looks like a really strong player here for Houston. He's very explosive, and very quick. So he can play both. He can play the point, he can play the 2. And he's a really good player here. I like Jalen Green a lot. We talked a little bit about him yesterday, and he's another guy who's really worked on his perimeter shooting. So Houston gets a good one here.
They do. Number 3, the Cavaliers select Evan Mobley, power forward center from USC. Mobley had a great freshman season at USC, averaging 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. He's a two-way talent. He can play strong defensively and spread the floor on offense. He's a valuable defensive player and should have no problem scoring at the NBA level. The Cavs were dead set on Mobley at number 3, and they'll hope he can emerge as a franchise centerpiece in the same way Joel Embiid has for the Sixers. I love this pick for the Cavs. They have Sexton, they have Garland, 2 very talented young guards. Garland had kind of an underwhelming rookie year, but he was great last year in his 2nd season. Sexton averaged 26 points a game. He looks like a star in the making. So Sexton and Garland run the backcourt, and now they add Mobley as a piece down low. They really needed a big to pair with Jared Allen, who they got in that trade with the Nets last year. This Cavs team sneakily starting to come together. It could be a team that competes for the playoffs this year. I like this roster.
I do too. And they look really, really strong here. Mobley's a great pick. Big guy, and he's going to play well down low for Cleveland. But he's not the most physical rebounder. He can kind of get kind of pushed out of the way by some of these bigger players. So if he can kind of bulk up a little bit, gain some strength here, I think he's going to be a great player.
I do too. Let's move on to the number 4 pick. This was the first quote unquote maybe surprise of the first round. Not that the Toronto took a bad player or a player that was a reach, but just they didn't take a player that I think a lot of people thought they'd take. With the 4th pick, the Toronto Raptors select Scotty Barnes, small forward, Florida State. Barnes' stock has been absolutely just through the roof. He comes off the board at number 4. He's still kind of developing on offense, but he is unbelievable on the defensive end. High all-around ceiling. A lot of teams think this guy's going to be a star. He averaged 10 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists in his freshman year at Florida State. The Raptors add him to their front court with the expectation that he can be a building block for the new era of Toronto. A little surprising that they didn't take Suggs here. I thought they would. But Scotty Barnes, like this says, outstanding defender. He's going to be a great wing to pair with Siakam. And if his offense can be even league average, this is going to be a star in the league for sure.
Yeah, he is. Like you said, one of the quote unquote surprises, right here, and that's, Barnes being taken here by Toronto. But I like Scotty Barnes. I do. He's got the perfect size for a forward. 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan. His shot is kind of funky looking, so maybe he can, would be the Raptors would kind of want to work with that a little bit and see if they can kind of change that up a little bit. But he's a great mismatch. He can play. He played the 1 for Florida State, but he's a forward at heart. He can play the 2, he can play the 3, play the 4. So he's a very very versatile player here for Toronto, and I think that's why they picked him, to be honest.
No doubt about it. With the 5th overall pick, the Orlando Magic select Jalen Suggs, point guard Gonzaga. Suggs was somewhat surprisingly passed up by the Raptors at 4, but the Magic don't let him slip out of the top 5. Suggs was one of the top freshmen in the country this past season, displaying great ball handling and terrific defense. He's a more developed three-point shot could turn Suggs into the best player in this draft, and the Magic seem to have their franchise point guard in place with the Final Four here. Suggs instantly becomes a centerpiece of the future of Orlando. That's pretty obvious. I'll tell you what, Parker, I know they traded Vucevic. I know they traded Aaron Gordon. They traded Fournier. It's a team that's kind of starting to redo this roster, but they have Mo Bamba. They have Jonathan Isaac, who I like a lot. One of the best defenders in the NBA, underrated scorer as well, great slasher, and a 6'11" small forward. Unbelievable size, athleticism, and defense from Jonathan Isaac. And now they add Suggs as well, Jalen Suggs. This Magic team's still a couple years away, but it's quite the foundation. It's quite the building block. I really like what the future in Orlando could be.
Yeah, I do too. Suggs is going to be a strong player here in Orlando. He's a bigger guard at 6'4", but I like the way he plays. And he hit one of the biggest shots, and he hit the biggest shot in the NCAA tournament this past spring. But one of the issues with Suggs is he's very streaky when it comes to shooting. He has good mechanics and good balance, but he's 27% career from 3 when he was at Gonzaga, so nothing to write home about for Suggs on perimeter shooting, but I think they can kind of work that out a little bit.
Right.
Strong defender, and he can get down low and get some rebounds too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I'm sure most NBA executives would tell you that if there's one tool that a player doesn't have, and it's inconsistency shooting the ball, that's probably one of the best tools that you could need to learn in the NBA, where you can't teach athleticism, you can't teach IQ, you can't teach scrappiness, and that's what everything that Suggs possesses. You can teach somebody a few mechanical changes to a jump shot that makes them more efficient. So I really like the potential of Jalen Suggs, and I do think I don't know if he'll be the best player in this draft class, but I definitely think he'll be one of the stars from this draft class. Cunningham, Green, Mobley, Suggs. There's a lot of talent in this class, but I think looking back on it in 5 years, we're gonna look at Jalen Suggs and be like, yeah, he's a star.
Yeah, I think so too. He's, like you said, you can work out the shooting inconsistencies. He's a strong defender. He takes care of the ball really well. And he's great off the ball. Just as good on the ball as he is off the ball. And he gets to his spot. And he's does really well in the passing lanes, but the shooting is an issue. So I think they can work that out pretty well here. In Orlando. So this is a great pick for the Magic.
It is. Number 6, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Josh Giddey, point guard from Australia. Giddey's stock has been rising of late, but his ceiling was thought to be the Warriors at 7. The Thunder instead settle on the tall, talented passer, adding him alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Giddey put up big rebound and assist numbers in the NBL at just 18 years old, and some more scoring should allow him to turn into a well above average starter. He's a 6'9" point guard, Parker, with outstanding passing vision and IQ, pretty strong defense because of his size, and also a pretty solid rebounder. His offense still has a lot of room to grow in terms of scoring the basketball, but he's still only 19 years old. This is something that if he can develop a reasonably decent scoring ability, he could end up being one of the steals of the draft, because he was a guy that was not as hyped up as some of these other guys, and he could end up being just as good.
Yeah, he could. Like you said, very big point guard at 6'9". But he's not the best defender, by any means. But he does show. He has great instincts as a rebounder, and he can steal the ball very well. He ranked top 5 in the NBL in rebounding. Size and instincts, should allow this guy to kind of, improve on the floor. He can kind of fill out a little bit. But another issue with some of these guys is perimeter shooting, so they can kind of work that a little bit too. He's a great player, and I think OKC got a good guy here.
I do too. I think that I think that it's a great A great move for the Thunder, and I think the Thunder had a pretty strong draft. We'll get into that a little bit later, but the Warriors at number 7. I really like what Golden State did tonight. We'll get into their other pick a little bit later, but I love how the Warriors draft. And with the 7th overall pick, they took Jonathan Kuminga, small forward out of the G League. Kuminga's a stud, and they would have preferred to probably land a more NBA ready talent, but Kuminga's potential is just too much to pass up on. Blue chip prospect out of high school. He went to the G League and showed he still has plenty of development, but he's a high ceiling, unbelievably athletic, strong rebounder. His offense will take a few years, but they won't. The Warriors have a chance to groom him and make him one of their stars of the next era. And I love this fit because he's going to learn from 3 really good wings that the Warriors have, 3 of the better wings in the NBA. That he could learn from. One that can teach him offense and scoring, one that can teach him, that's just as athletic as him, and one that's a strong defender. And I'm talking about Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green. So this is a great fit for Kuminga. He's going to get a couple of years to develop. And by the time, he's only 18. By the time he's 21, he could be one of the best players on the Warriors.
Yeah, he could, and I like this pick a lot. He's a bigger guy, bigger forward, 6'8", 220. 7-foot wingspan, and he he's a shot maker. He made 42%. 3-pointers in with the Nike EYBL 2 years ago. So this guy's a great player. He's great decision making. And he can his footwork is pretty good as well. But his defending ability needs some work. So this guy's, like you said, he's a stud. But certainly some kinks to work out, as well here.
Number 8, the Orlando Magic have their second pick of the top 10. They take Franz Wagner, small forward from Michigan. Wagner, obviously the younger brother of Mo Wagner from a couple of years ago, the first-round pick. He's a well-rounded two-way prospect. His offensive game has intrigued a lot of teams in the top 10, but his continued development defensively could round him into an above-average starter in the NBA. He averaged 12.5 points and 6.5 rebounds last year for the Wolverines, shot about 34% from 3, but he got better as the year went on. The Magic take Wagner at about his earliest potential landing spot, and they'll hope he becomes a key factor in their rebuild. So Suggs ends up being the point guard of the future in Orlando, and it looks like they're going to try, the duo of Isaac and Wagner as their forwards moving forward. So it's going to be a young Magic team, but it's going to be a Magic team with a lot of talent and a lot of potential. And I might be watching quite a few Orlando games this year.
I think I will too. They get Suggs and they get Wagner here. So, I like Franz Wagner. I do. He is a bigger guy at 6'9", 220, but he has great size for the position. And he's younger too. So you can kind of develop him as you need, and as you develop him, he can kind of fill out and do a solid player for you. He's not the quickest player on the floor. And not the greatest shooter from the perimeter, but both those things can kind of be worked out here.
Yeah, they could for sure. With the 9th pick, the Sacramento Kings select Davion Mitchell, shooting guard from Baylor. Mitchell made a real name for himself during Baylor's run to the national championship. He's a terrific defender, shut down some of the better guards in the country. He's relatively small, but he's scrappy. He has great defensive ability that can make an impact day one. A still developing offensive game, but that could make him a long-term starter for the Sacramento Kings. I like this pick a lot. I know they have De'Aaron Fox. It looks like they're going to end up running him at shooting guard. And I'm not going to lie. The selfish part of me wanted Davion Mitchell to fall to 13 because I wanted him to be the next point guard of the Pacers. But this is a good fit for Sacramento. He's going to be a really good guard with the Kings.
Yeah, he is. He's arguably the best on-ball defender in the draft. He has a really solid frame, 6'2", 205, and he's very quick too. He doesn't have the best length, but he's very quick. So this is a guy I like a lot. Sacramento gets a great player here. and he was great, with Baylor, and I expect him to be great with the Kings, and he's going to be a strong player for them. He needs to work on the free throw shooting, he can kind of that can be worked out. But his adjustment to the NBA is going to be something I'm going to watch. But Davion Mitchell, one of the better point guards in this draft, and the Kings get a good one here.
They do. The 10th overall pick, the Memphis Grizzlies select Zaire Williams from Stanford, a small forward from Stanford. Williams was one of the top high school prospects in the country in 2020. He had many ups and downs during his time at Stanford. He's a promising shooter with good size at the small forward position, high ceiling overall, and he's the newest addition to the Grizzlies' young core, and certainly has the potential to develop into a big-time starter. Obviously, the Grizzlies have Dylan Brooks, they have John Morant, they have Jaren Jackson Jr., a lot of really young talent in the Memphis rotation. And Zaire Williams is just going to be another one of those guys where they just got Steven Adams as well. But I like the direction that Memphis is going. This is going to be a guy that I don't think is one of the better rookies in his first year. But he's going to be another one of these project pieces where maybe he's a role player for a year or two, but he could end up being a very solid starter down the road.
Right. And, I like this pick a lot for New Orleans. Williams is a strong player, out of Stanford. He's very thin, at 185 and 6'8", but, how can he fill out is going to be the question. He lacks toughness because he is a smaller guy, as far as frame goes. But he still needs to find the balance, on to when to be aggressive. And he's a shot maker. He shoots the ball really well. And he has good court vision, so he's a great passer. I like this pick a lot here for New Orleans.
I do too. Number 11, the Charlotte Hornets select James Bouknight, shooting guard from UConn. He was reported to be rising up boards, potentially going as high as 6, but that didn't end up happening. The Hornets will gladly scoop up the talented scorer. He averaged 19 points and 6 rebounds as the on-court leader of the UConn Huskies. He'll be 21 when the season begins. He's older than a lot of these top prospects, but he gives the Hornets a bona fide scoring option for the future next to LaMelo Ball. Love this pick. This backcourt for the Hornets is going to be nasty. They have the passing guru and the court maestro in LaMelo Ball who can also score. And now they have Bouknight, who's going to be a great guy that spreads the floor. He can shoot off ball. He can be a catch and shoot guy, and he can also create his own offense. So this Hornets backcourt looks really, really good.
Yeah, it does, and they look like they're going to be a lot of fun with Ball and now with Bouknight. So this guy's a great player, and he's a scorer, and that's what his role is going to be. He's got nice size for a guard at 6'5". And he can play well in the open court, and he has great footwork, but he can improve on some of his his defensive aspects, and his jump shot is kind of shaky as well, but he can improve that as well. So I think he's a better off the ball guard. Can he develop into maybe a 1 and 2 kind of role? Maybe. But as of right now, he's going to be a 2 and can kind of fit into a 1 role as you go along.
Mm-hmm. With the 12th overall pick, the San Antonio Spurs select Joshua Primo, a guard from Alabama. Primo was not considered to be a lock for the first round, but the Spurs are the Spurs, and they select perhaps the youngest first-round prospect in this draft class. He's an intriguing shooter with strong defensive ability. He may just surprise us, and the Spurs will attempt to mold him into a starter in the NBA. So a little bit of a reach for Primo based on his, projections. But this guy is a very strong 3-and-D player, good defender, good shooter, and he's very, very young. So clearly the Spurs front office and Greg Popovich saw something that a lot of, NBA draft analysts didn't necessarily see. And I think he definitely has the potential to be a strong player with his raw skills and the fact that he's possibly the youngest player in this draft.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of on the fence with this pick. He's very raw, very inexperienced, and maybe that's something that the San Antonio wanted. But I think that like I said, he's very raw. He's not the biggest guy. He lacks strength and experience, and he needs to develop his shot creations. He struggles to finish around the rim. So this is one that this is going to be a work in progress type role here for San Antonio. They're kind of gonna I think they're gonna kind of bring him along, as they go. This is not going to be a guy that jumps in on game one and plays immediately. He's going to be kind of a DIY, do it yourself work kind of work in progress here for Greg Popovich.
Yeah. With the 13th pick, the Indiana Pacers select Chris Duarte, shooting guard from Oregon. Duarte is a rare 24-year-old lottery pick, and as a result, this could be an instant impact pick for the Pacers. Duarte is a JUCO transfer who went to Oregon. He was a terrific scorer with the Ducks, averaging 17 points per game. His ceiling may not be as high as some of the players in the top 10, but Duarte should be able to score some points and make an impact on the defensive end from day one with the Pacers. The guy I really wanted was Davion Mitchell as a Pacers fan, but obviously Davion Mitchell was gone. So I don't mind this Duarte pick at all. I think they needed a wing. Duarte is going to be able to contribute offensively from day one. He's a strong defender and a pretty decent shooter as well. So this is going to be a guy that I think makes a good impact on you from day one with the Pacers. He might not be a superstar like some of these other players in this draft, but really when you're not picking in the top 10, you never get a superstar anyway. So I think the Pacers did a pretty good job getting a guy that's going to make an impact right away.
Yeah, and that's kind of the Pacers' MO right now. Make an impact right away, and they solidified that when they hired Carlisle. So this is a guy who's he's older. He's 24 years old, has arguably the most experienced out of anybody in this draft. So and he's a bigger guard at 6'6", I believe, 190. So he's he's very versatile. And this next few months for the Pacers is going to be interesting to see how they use him. That they needed a guy to pair with Brogdon, and a bench point guard after they traded away Aaron Holiday. So they needed another guard, so they get that in Duarte. I think he's going to be one of the more NBA ready players that we see in this draft.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think his game translates to the league a lot quicker than some of these other guys does. 14th pick, we got two more to do. 14th pick, the Golden State Warriors select Moses Moody, shooting guard from Arkansas. Moody slipped just a bit. He was discussed about going 8 to 12, but he's landing in a good situation as a potential 3-and-D player for the Warriors. He's a young prospect, and he could score some points for the Warriors off the bench as he potentially develops into something more. Like I said earlier, Parker, I love what the Warriors did tonight. They get Jonathan Kuminga, who's going to be a project. He's not going to make a huge impact right away, but his ceiling is through the roof. So they have him kind of chilling in the background as they work on him behind the scenes. And they have Moses Moody, who's still pretty young, but his 3-and-D ability is going to allow him to make an impact with the Warriors from day one. So they get a guy that's going to impact the team right away, and they get a guy that could end up being a superstar in a few years. Great night for the Warriors front office.
Yeah, it was. They like you said, they get Kuminga, which is going to be, he's going to be a great player down the road. But this guy is more of a, play now kind of guy. He needs, and that's what they like about this guy. He played well, at Arkansas, and I like the way he plays. He can get to the line, and he's a great free throw shooter. So, he's bigger. He's 6'6", a really big wingspan. So, he has a lot of length, but he lacks in quickness, which is okay. If you have length, you really don't need quickness, a whole lot. Sure, it helps, but if you can get up and down the floor and play solid defensively, which I think Moody does, this is a great pick for the Warriors.
It is.
It is.
And obviously Moses Moody and that Arkansas team ended up going to the Elite Eight, and that team also had at point guard Jalen Tate, the Northern Kentucky star, who transferred there for his senior season. So, with the final pick that we're going to cover today, the last pick of the lottery, the Washington Wizards select Corey Kispert, small forward from Gonzaga. Kispert was a pure scorer at Gonzaga, averaging almost 19 points per game and shooting 44% from three. His ceiling is limited. It's not as high as some of these other guys, and his skill set isn't super great other than being a good scorer, but he has the potential to be one of the best shooters in the NBA in this draft. The Wizards could look to Kispert as an immediate contributor on offense, and I think it's a good fit. He's not, the athletic freak with all the tools that some of these other guys have been earlier. But he's a good scorer, good shooter. He's going to make an impact in that regard for the Wizards. And Bradley Beal is really the create your own offense, run the floor kind of guy. What he needs is guys that surround him that can score. And Kispert's that kind of guy. So I think this is a good fit for the Wizards, excuse me.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's the best shooter in this draft. I do. He's a great player. And he shot 48% from the three, at Gonzaga. So he's a great, a great player from range. He's got soft touch on floaters, and he's not the biggest player, and he's pretty one dimensional, with his perimeter shooting. But I think, and he needs to work on his shot creation and ball handling, but. I think Kispert's one of the better players in this draft, and he certainly is, to me, the best shooter in this draft.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. It's going to be a great fit, I think, alongside Bradley Beal. But that does it for hour number one. We got to hit our legal ID before Patrick yells at us. But fun hour number one. A lot of trades that we got into. We also went over every single lottery pick of the NBA draft. We're going to step away for a few minutes. When we come back, ACC conference preview. Parker, I think it's safe to say Clemson's the favorites, but there's a lot of teams to dissect where we talk about North Carolina and Sam Howell. Are they really good enough to challenge the Tigers at the top? Virginia Tech, are they finally going to get over the hump and beat Clemson? And a team I'm really excited to see is Derek King in Miami. So a lot to get into in hour number two, and I'm excited to talk about the ACC.
Yeah, I am. And a great hour number one. I was going to tweet this, but it spaced my mind. I think I think Jay Billis is so much better than Mel Kiper on draft coverage. The NBA draft was a lot of fun to watch tonight. So, lots of interesting players going to places, and lots of fun trades today in baseball. And I expect more tomorrow.
No doubt about it. It's been a blast. All right, well, we're going to step away for just a few moments. Hit this legal ID. We'll be back for hour number two in just a few. Keep it real. Keep it locked. We'll see you for hour number two in just a few moments. Okay, hour number 2 of Keep It Real with Testa and Neal. How are all of you? Appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Friday afternoon, 1 to 3 on WWSU 106.9 FM. We got a lot to get into. If you just now joined us, you missed us talk about some of the big MLB trades. Kyle Schwarber's a Red Sox. Anthony Rizzo is a Yankee, along with Joey Gallo, and the big ones, Scherzer and Trey Turner, are Dodgers. So you missed a lot. And then also the NBA draft was last night. Fun to talk about that for a little bit. We only went over 15 picks, Parker, but I mean, I don't feel like there were any question marks in those top 15. Obviously, different guys have different strengths and different skill sets, but I mean, this seems like it's going to be a really talented draft because everyone that went in that lottery seems like they're going to be a pretty good player.
Yeah, they do. This was fun. Cade Cunningham, obvious number one pick here. But there was, lots of, talented players in this draft. I don't think any of these teams missed. So this was fun. As was talking about the trades, in baseball today. Lots of action going on. In baseball yesterday. And I think, when this airs, I think we're going to have even more. So, it's not done by any means. So, it's going to be fun. Of course, the deadline is 4 o'clock this afternoon. Of course, we'll be off the air by then, but we will obviously have our opinions on stuff, starting next week. So it was, a fun day yesterday in the MLB world. Yeah. So let's get into some college football.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to share my screen, so if you're watching on YouTube, you can follow along. But yeah, we have the ACC here today, and I'm excited for it. The ACC is a conference where I think a lot of people think it's boring, just because Clemson, dominates every year, and in some ways, maybe it is. But what I'm really excited to see is some of the talent in this conference, and just how great it is. Clemson's definitely the team to beat, but teams like North Carolina, Miami, NC State, Pitt, Virginia Tech, they're not going to make it easy. Clemson's going to have to scrap. This might be the most competition they've had in quite a few years in the ACC.
Yeah, it might be. This conference is fun. You have North Carolina, Miami, Boston College, NC State, Florida State. Lots of fun schools in this conference, and they're gonna be fun as well.
Yeah.
It's a fun conference. Clemson's ran away with it. A lot. In the past 5 or so years, but this conference is fun.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. I'm so excited about, Parker, is just the quarterback play in this conference is really second to none. You have Sam Howell at North Carolina, who's definitely a Heisman candidate. He's definitely a first round talent in the NFL draft. Derek King at Miami, DJ. I'm gonna butcher this. I think it's Uiagalelei at Clemson, and then Phil Jerkovic at Boston College as well. There's more than four, but there's really solid quarterbacks in this conference. It's a fun offensive driven league. Very similar to the Big 12 and this fact that they have a lot of really good skill position players.
Yeah. They do, and it's fun. Especially, as fun as the offense is in this conference, there are lots of strong defenses here as well. Clemson has a strong defense. NC State has a strong defense. So this conference is fun for sure.
It sure is. So let's move on. Let's start it off with the Clemson Tigers. The Clemson Tigers are going to be led by the freshman quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, 6'4", 250 pounds. He's going to have to do, the near impossible task of trying to replace Trevor Lawrence. But he was very strong in that spot start last year. In 2 starts, he had 900 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's the guy now. And also at running back will be a freshman, Will Shipley, who's, a big recruit. He was the number 3 running back recruit in the country. So a lot of talent, like always, on this roster, Parker. But if you look at it, top to bottom, a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores. This might be one of Dabo's youngest teams. So the talent's there, but the experience is not. So this Clemson team could be vulnerable early in the year.
Yeah, they could be. What I'm looking for from Clemson is how are these younger players going to step up? Of course, their quarterback DJ Uiagalelei is a freshman. I know some of the more experienced players on this roster are guys like James Skalski, the linebacker. Balin Spector, the junior linebacker as well. Um, and Justin Ross is a junior
Yeah.
at wide receiver, and so this is a very young team, and I expect them to be good because Clemson's always good. But this is like you said, this is definitely one of Dabo's younger teams.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned those guys because they all have big roles this year. I mean, Justin Ross was, supposed to be. He stole the spotlight from T. Higgins his freshman year in the college football playoff. Higgins was supposed to be, their number one receiver. And Justin Ross came out of nowhere as a true freshman and lit up the college football playoff and became, this big star receiver. And he was great again last year until he had to leave with an injury. He will be back, and he's going to be, Clemson's top receiver. 6'4", 205 pounds, great size, good speed, good route running. He's just a good receiver. And then on defense, James Skalski, their captain, he was great last year. Got ejected in the college football semi for targeting, but great linebacker, great instincts, hits hard, and really holds down the middle of the field very well. And another guy I'm excited to see that you brought up, or that you maybe didn't bring up, but their deep safety, Nolan Turner. 6'1", 205, another senior. And this guy's just an absolute ball hawk, Parker. If you put the ball anywhere close to this guy on the field, as Justin Fields learned in that playoff game, he's going to make a play more times than not. This is a guy that gets a lot of turnovers for that Clemson defense.
Yeah, he is. And, like you said, he's a ball hawk, a very, very strong free safety for Dabo Sweeney. It's kind of funny to say that two of their more experienced guys are on special teams, and their punter and Will Spires and their kicker and BT Potter. Two of your more experienced guys are on special teams, but Nolan Turner's one of the few starters that's a senior on this roster to go along with Skalski. So, like we said, this is a very young team. They lose Travis Etienne, their star running back, Clemson's all-time leading rusher. And so they have a new running back, and it's going to be Will Shipley, the freshman, 5'11", 200 pounds. He's going to be a solid player for Dabo Sweeney. This Clemson team's fun. They're young, but they're fun.
They are. And they're going to be tested right away, Parker. Their schedule, it's not the toughest in the country, but it's got its moments. And this team is very inexperienced. A lot of young players that are going to be trying to get their feet wet, and they're not going to get a lot of time to get their feet wet because in week 1 they take on Georgia in Charlotte, and that's going to be a great game. This Clemson team probably will be favored. I think they're the more talented team on paper, but Georgia's got a strong defense. Georgia's got, JT Daniels, and Georgia's got a little bit more experience at a lot of these key positions. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Georgia pulled this one off. I mean, Clemson's, like I've said numerous times already, Clemson's very talented, but there's a lot of freshmen and sophomores on this team. So guys like Turner, guys like Skalski, guys like Justin Ross, and even a guy like Uiagalelei, who's still a freshman, but at least he had 2 starts last season. They're going to have to step up, or else Georgia could put Clemson, at 0-1, which is crazy.
Yeah, they could. And, Georgia's a tough test early on, and I think that's the way Dabo Sweeney likes it. You go further down into this schedule, you get NC State, you get Boston College, you get Pitt, you get Louisville, you get South Carolina. So this is not an easy schedule. It's not the most difficult in the world, but like you said, there are some tough tests on here.
Yeah, there are. And they would also potentially, if they make it to the ACC championship game, which I'd assume they do, they could also potentially run into Mac Brown and Sam Howell in North Carolina, who I have high expectations for the North Carolina Tar Heels this year. We'll get to them in a little bit, but Georgia is that I'm excited for that Georgia game. That's now we're sitting here, Parker. It's July 30th. We're almost a month on the dot away from Georgia and Clemson in week 1.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun. This Clemson team is fun. I'm a big Brent Venables fan, their defensive coordinator. He brings a lot of energy to this team, and it's a strong defense. They have Xavier Thomas up front, the junior defensive end. And the strong defensive tackle up front, and Brian Breesy, the freshman, 6'5", 300 pounds. He's a load up front for offensive linemen. And then of course, you have Skalski and Turner in the second, or you have Skalski as at the linebacker position, and then Turner in the secondary. So this defense is fun. The schedule's one of the, it's not the hardest schedule in the world, but like we said, some tough tests on here for sure.
No doubt about it. Let's get into the team that they have as their biggest competition in their division, I should say, in the ACC, and that's the NC State Wolfpack. The Wolfpack are led by sophomore quarterback Devin Leary. He's 6'2", 212 pounds. He was the number 22 quarterback in his class. 5 starts a season ago, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 picks. Not the greatest completion percentage, but, he did make plays when he needed to. A guy that I'm really excited to see, Parker, is the running back how do I pronounce that? Zonovan, excuse me, not like Donovan, but with a Z. So Zonovan Knight, but he would prefer, Parker, if we just called him Bam Knight, and that's a great name for a running back, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it is, and he's a bigger back at 5'11", 210, and you got to be a bigger back if you want the nickname Bam. So he's the sophomore back, and he comes back, this year after having, almost 800 yards last year with 10 touchdowns. So Bam Knight is certainly a talented running back here for the Wolfpack.
Where NC State could have an advantage over other teams in this conference is their experience at the skill positions. They have their receivers. Thayer Thomas is a junior, 6 foot, strong route runner, good speed. They have also Amika Emise, who's a senior, 6'3". He's more of their deep threat. CJ Riley, 6'5", 230-pound junior. He's a big guy that can go up and get it. And then even their tight end, Dylan Parham, a senior as well at 6'5", 246. So 2 seniors, 2 juniors, Parker, a lot of experience in this receiving core. And that could be a big strength for the Wolfpack offense.
Yeah, it could. And this Wolfpack offense is fun. Dave Doran has, a solid group here. He's in his 9th year at NC State. This is a fun team for sure. They have some, experience on the offensive line as well. Their right tackle Tyrone Riley's a senior. And then their left tackle Ikem Iquanu is, he's a bigger guy as well, 6'4", 320. And then they have lots of experience on defense. They're one of their ends. Daniel Joseph is a senior, 6'3", 265. And then their secondary experience as well. They have, with the exception of Shaheen Battle, who's a redshirt freshman. They have, Derek Pitts as their second corner as a junior. Cyrus Fagan is a senior at strong safety, and then Tanner Engel is a junior at the free safety position. So an experienced secondary, experienced linebacking crew here for the Wolfpack, and it's going to be a fun team.
Yeah, definitely a team that has a stronger offense over a defense. Their defense a little inconsistent at times. They have experience, though, and a guy I'm really looking forward to take a step and be the leader of this defense is the middle linebacker, the junior Isaiah Moore. He had 122 tackles and 23 starts so far in his career, 12 tackles for loss. This is a guy that just is a ball, I shouldn't say a ball hawk, Parker. He's a rover. He just kind of, he's all over the field. He's wherever the ball is. He's always making plays. And that's why he got rewarded with second team All ACC a year ago. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he was first team All ACC this year. This is definitely the best player on their defense. And it's a good thing he's middle linebacker because, he's the guy that gets everyone set. He's the captain of that defense. And it's a comforting feeling when the captain's also your best player.
Right. And that's the way it should be. And Isaiah Moore's a solid player here. He was, like you said, 94 tackles a season ago, to go along with 8 tackles for loss, 2 pass defense, 3 sacks. He's a solid player. And then of course the secondary, Cyrus Fagans, the transfer from Florida State. He's a solid player as well. This defense has experience.
It does. Let's look at their schedule, Parker. It's a little bit tougher than the Clemson schedule we saw, and it's because they did draw both North Carolina and Clemson. So we look at their schedule. They start the year with the USF Bulls on September 2nd. They take on Mississippi State in a game against the SEC. Clemson kicks off their ACC schedule on September 25th. And then out of the break, a couple tough games in a row at Boston College and at Miami. And then a little bit later on in the year, they end the season at home on Senior Day against Sam Howell and the Tar Heels. So tough schedule for sure. I'd say, 5 or 6 pretty tough games on there. But I expect a pretty similar season for the Wolfpack to last year, about, 7, 8, maybe even 9 wins.
Yeah, I think so too. And it'll be some of the, the easier wins, if you will. That'll be big here. They got Furman, they got La Tech, they got Wake Forest, Syracuse. I think all those games are winnable for the Wolfpack. The tests are going to come against teams like Mississippi State, Clemson, Boston College, Miami, North Carolina. So, this is not an easy schedule, but there are lots of winnable games here.
There are. Let's move on to the Boston College Eagles. Jeff Hafley's done a great job here, Parker. He was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Took the job with Boston College. They weren't doing very well when he got there, but he goes 6-5 in his first year, and he gets a really good recruiting class, and now they're projected to come third in this half of the ACC. So he did a great job. He'll be using Phil Jurkovich at quarterback, the sophomore, 6'5", 230, big dude. He was the number 4 quarterback in his class, and that just speaks credit to Jeff Hafley right off the bat, Parker. Shows up to Boston College, a team that's just been a nightmare for so long, mediocre at best, in the bottom of the ACC at worst. And in his first year, he gets the number 4 quarterback in the country to commit to Boston College, and he's been great. He's 4th team all-conference as just a sophomore, and I think he's a future star in this league if he isn't already.
Yeah, I think so too. He is a strong player for Jeff Hafley last year. He was 61% passer, 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns at a QBR of 138. He was almost perfect last year for Jeff Hafley. So this is a really strong player here for the BC Eagles, and a very big player at 6'5", 230. The guy I'm looking at is their starting running back, Travis Levy. He's a strong player as well. He didn't have the best year statistically last year, but he's a solid player. But one spot I'm looking at is our offensive line. Lots of experience here. They got, their right tackle, Benjamin Petrula, is a senior. One of their guards, Zion Johnson's a senior. Their center's a junior. They got a lot of experience on this team.
They do. I love, Parker, I will say, I love this receiving core on this team. They have their best receiver is Jalen Gill, the sophomore. He was the number 6 wide receiver in the country in his class. And he's their top guy. They also have Zay Flowers, who's another sophomore. He was first team all ACC last year with almost 900 yards as a true freshman. And then Kobe White, the senior, he's the experienced guy on this team. He has 1,400 receiving yards in 27 starts in his career. They also have a senior at tight end in Trey Berry. He's 6'7". He's a red zone threat as well. So I love this roster. I love this receiving core. They're a little undersized, only one guy over 6 foot in the receiving core. But all 3 of them have good speed. All 3 of them have good route running. A senior that kind of leads. A guy that was first team all ACC as a freshman, and a guy that was the number 6 receiver in the country in his class and has all the makings of a superstar. The BC passing offense with Jurkovich and these 3 receivers could be, maybe the best in the ACC.
Yeah, they could, and they're fun. Like you said, a bit undersized, but they're fun. They're a fun group. Kobe White, the senior, is a strong player. For him, he's a pretty good player as well. And then their leading receiver last year was Zay Flowers. He had almost 900 yards with 9 touchdowns. So this team is, it's really fun. It's a fun team, and this schedule, They have some winnable games here. But and as well on defense, they're experienced on defense as well. Their free safety Mike Palmer is a strong player for them. He had 25 tackles last year with a pick, and then up front, I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Chibuze Onwuka, I think is how you say his name. The senior 5'11", 290, bit of a smaller guy for a defensive tackle. But he's a strong player. 19 tackles with a sack and a half last year. So he's a strong player up front, the senior. And then their will linebacker, Isaiah Graham Mobley, is a strong player for him as well. I like this defense a lot. They look really strong. Graham Mobley's a transfer from Temple. So this defense has a lot of experience.
It does. I think it's a team that's going to end up having a stronger offense than defense, but I think their defense definitely is better this year than it was a year ago. I would love. I think NC State will be good, but I think Boston College has the kind of talent, Parker. Where this team went 6-5 a year ago in Hafley's first year. I think they have the talent to elevate it a level and maybe win 8-9 games this season and really emerge as the second best team in this division.
I do too, especially with Jerkovich at quarterback. The guy's fun. So this team is, like you said, I think they're better offensively as well. But their defense can certainly hold their own, and they're going to be a fun team.
They are. They start the year against Colgate. They take on Clemson on the road, as well as Temple on the road, and Missouri at home. So a tough 5 games to start the season. NC State out of the bye. They also have to go to the Carrier Dome to take on Syracuse, which is never easy. Virginia Tech, but the back half of the schedule is definitely easier. So if they can survive that first half, Parker, if they can pull off wins against, Temple, maybe Missouri, and if they can win that battle between them and NC State, I think, who are really neck and neck, this could be a team that wins 9 games and comes in second. I don't think it's that far-fetched.
No, I don't think so either. This team is going to be, they're going to be competitive. Tough games against Clemson, against NC State, against, Georgia Tech is going to be tough as well as the Hokies at Virginia Tech. But there's lots of winnable games here for the Boston College Eagles, and they're going to be fun.
Let's move on to Wake Forest. Wake Forest is led by Sam Hartman, the sophomore, a little bit smaller, 6'1", 215. He's a playmaker. He had in 10 starts, 2,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, 56% completion percentage, so a little bit lower, and 10 interceptions. So this is a guy that'll make mistakes, but he'll also make a lot of really nice plays. A guy that I am absolutely stoked to see, Parker, is their slot receiver, and that is Jaquari Roberson. He was second team All-ACC a season ago. He's really, I don't know if I'd even consider him he's kind of a slot receiver, but he's also kind of like, an H-back, 6'1", 182, but he had, 926 receiving yards a year ago, which was second team All-ACC, but we'll see him in Wildcat offense. We'll see him on jet sweeps. We'll see him on screen passes. This is kind of their gadget player, and he's one of the best at it in this league, and he really adds a new dimension to this Demon Deacon offense.
He does, and he's a fun player. Like you said, almost 1,000 yards last year receiving, to go along with 8 touchdowns. So the guy is just fun to watch. Like you said, can play really, a few different positions at the wide receiver spot. Whether it's he's listed as a slot, but he can play out wide as well. And this is more of an experienced offense. As a whole, their running back Christian Beal Smith's a junior. Roberson's a junior. Their tight end Brandon Chapman at 6'5", 250 is a senior, and then their offensive line has there's only one sophomore on this offensive line, and that's the center Jurgens. Everybody else is a senior or junior, so this team's going to be fun. And looking at the other side of the ball, very experienced front seven with Miles Fox as their nose tackle, the senior up front. And then Tyler Williams, the junior defensive tackle as well. Luke Masterson, the senior linebacker. Travion Red, another linebacker here, and then their secondaries is led by Jasir Taylor, the senior, and then they have a couple freshmen in the secondary as well. So this team's fun. I think they're it's going to be the opposite of the teams we've talked about before. I think they're going to be a better defensive team than offense.
Yeah, which is funny because they're actually returning every offensive starter that they had last year. But I think it's a team that has, I think they're a tier below the two that we just talked about in NC State and Boston College, just because I think they have more question marks. I think they still have talent, but I think NC State and Boston College has more experienced in terms of like prove it. I look at the Boston College roster, for example, and I have less questions than I do about Wake Forest. That's not saying that Wake Forest couldn't be better at the end of the year when it's all said and done. I just think they have more, obstacles to climb. But their schedule is definitely a favorable one. They have a chance to get off to a good start with Old Dominion and Norfolk State, and then a big one against Florida State at home, Virginia on the road, Louisville, and then Syracuse. So really, Parker, these first 6 games, not too bad. They could come out of that very easily. I think 5-1, maybe 4-2 at worst. Hey, if they're 6-0, we could talk about them as contenders, but I think they could easily win 4 or 5 of those games. Out of the bye is when it gets tough. They take on Army West Point on the road, not a sleeper team at all. North Carolina on the road, NC State at home, Clemson on the road, and then BC on the road. So 4 really tough road games after the bye week. So this team might have to win 4 or 5 games in the first half if they want to make a bowl game, because it's going to get really tough in late October.
Yeah, I'm with you. Those first 2 games are crucial to win. Host Old Dominion, host Norfolk State, and then they go to Virginia and Louisville, Syracuse, and then like you said, those last 4 road games are insanely tough with Army, North Carolina, and the non-con. And then they have, or I should say, non-division for Wake Forest. And then they have NC State, Clemson, and BC. So lots of tough schools here, down the stretch. I think all these, these last 6 games are tough. So if they want to make a bowl game, like you said, majority wins got to come in that first half.
They do. It's a team that could as I sit here right now, just looking at it, Duke's the only game I see in the second half of the schedule that I'd feel comfortable saying Wake Forest could win that game. Obviously they could win any of these games, but I think definitely the 4 road games, and NC State right now I think is a second tier team in the ACC, with Clemson being the only tier 1. So I think those 5 with the 4 road games and that NC State game, I think Wake Forest is going to come in pretty, substantial underdogs.
Yeah, I think so too. And Clemson's always tough. And they're going to be, they're going to be tough. Last time that Clemson played Wake Forest, Clemson beat them 52-3. So that's not pretty by any means. So it's they need to kind of work out those kinks. So I think they're going to be a strong team, but like we talked about, a lot of those wins got to come in the first half for them.
Let's get to Florida State, Parker. This team's interesting. They're still kind of rebuilding, but the Florida State brand is always fun. Let's start with the quarterback, because this is really fun. They have Mackenzie Milton, the senior transfer from UCF. Obviously, he was an absolute stud his first 3 years at UCF, had a gruesome leg injury that left him out the last 2 years with an injury, but he's ready to play his senior season, and he's going to do it with the Seminoles. Good to see Mackenzie Milton. I think college football is a better, it's a more fun sport to watch when he's out on the field. And he's definitely, I think, the best quarterback Florida State's had since Jameis Winston.
He is, and he's a great player. Like you said, put up insane numbers at UCF in his first 3 years, and he's going to come into Florida State, and I think he's going to do similar things. This team's fun. It is. I love this receiving core that they have here. Of course, their leading receiver was Ontario Wilson, who's coming back this year. The junior, 6 foot 173. He's a strong player. For Mike Norvell. He was our leading receiver both in catches and yards last year with 30 catches, 380 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So this team is fun. I love this receiving core with Wilson. Andrew Parchment comes in, as well, and then Cameron McDonald. So this wide receiver core is fun. And then you add in Hilton, the smaller, shifty guy who's 5'9", 190. So this receiving room is fun, and I'm excited to see what this offense does.
I'll tell you what I'm excited about on this defense, Parker, is just how good Mike Norvell has done at getting transfers to this team. Jermaine Johnson, defensive end, 6'5", 2 years at Georgia. So that's a big add. At Georgia's, obviously, if you're playing defense at Georgia, you're a good football player. Their nose tackle, Fabian Lovett, came from Mississippi State. Their other defensive end, Kair Thomas, came from South Carolina. They call him the Fox. That is going to be that's Thomas. Like I said, he's basically an edge rusher. That's what the Fox means. They also have on this roster, Jamie Robinson, their nickelback. He's coming from South Carolina. And then they have one of their backups as well. Cortez Andrews came from Maryland. And then they also have a young, strong safety in Brendan Grant, a sophomore that was the 12th best safety in the country. So this defense hasn't played a lot together at Florida State. But great job by Norvell to get not only good recruits to build this defense, but also getting a lot of really solid transfers that's going to make this a better unit.
Yeah, they are. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Lovett does. For Mike Norvell, he brings in a lot of guys, and this is just case in point here. And it's not like they're pushover guys by any means. A lot of them have experience. Emmett Rice is a senior at 6'2", 227, the linebacker. And then you have Keir Thomas, that Fox player that we talked about, 6'2", 275, and then Jermaine Johnson, the defensive end up front for him, is a senior as well. So 3 seniors on this starting lineup, no juniors at all. If my eyes don't deceive me, no juniors on this starting lineup for Mike Norvell on defense. Seniors, sophomores, freshmen here. So those seniors got to be willing to lead here. If you want to help these guys get more experience.
They do. Let's get to this schedule because this is the toughest one we've seen so far today. They take on Notre Dame to start the season. That's going to be a tough one, obviously. Wake Forest on the road will not be a pushover game by any means. That Wake Forest team is a really strong defensive team with the potential to be pretty solid on offense as well. So that'll be a fun test. At North Carolina right before the bye week, and then out of the bye week at Clemson, home against NC State, home against Miami, who we haven't talked about a ton yet, but we will get into them, at Boston College, and at Florida to end the year. So Notre Dame and North Carolina, really they're only 2 insanely tough games in the first half, but another team with just an absolute brutal second half. Those last 5 games are unforgiving.
No, yeah, they are. And that first one's tough. Notre Dame's going to be tough, of course. And then after Notre Dame, you got some winnable games here with Jacksonville State, Wake Forest, Louisville, Syracuse. North Carolina's going to be tough, of course. Then you have UMass, off their bye. At Clemson, they have to go to Death Valley there. NC State, Miami, Florida, BC, and University of Florida in Gainesville. So those that back half after UMass is tough. I think this Florida State team, they're going to have, I think Mackenzie Milton's going to bring them some success here, but that back half of that schedule is tough for sure.
Well, put it this way: if they win those 5 games in the that they could have a very potential chance of winning. Jacksonville State, Wake Forest, Louisville, Syracuse, and UMass. That's 5 wins. You need 6 to make a bowl game. So they'd only need to upset one of those 6 teams or those 7 teams, that we talked about between Notre Dame, North Carolina, Clemson, NC State, Miami, Boston College, and Florida. I don't know which team would fall to Florida State, but I do know with Mackenzie Milton at quarterback that anything is possible. And if that team's already at 5 wins, I'm sure I think they find a way to get it done and get to a bowl game. And for a Florida State team that's really been struggling and really been taking a lot of steps back the last couple of years, with a schedule like that, if they can find a way to make a bowl game, that's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, it is. And, they're a strong team. This schedule is really tough, and there are some winnable games on here, but this is one of, like you said, one of the tougher ones that we've seen.
It is. Let's get to the next team, the Louisville Cardinals. We have two more teams here on this side of the division. I have just said division because I can't remember. Is this the Atlantic or the Coastal? I think this is the Atlantic, right?
This is the Atlantic.
Okay. I didn't want to jump back like 10 pages digitally. So this is the Atlantic. We have two more teams left in the Atlantic before we get to the Coastal. With the Louisville Cardinals, they're led by Malik Cunningham. He's a 6'1", 200-pound mobile threat quarterback. And a guy that I'm really excited to see, Parker, from this team is, one of their better players, and he's got really outstanding size, and that's Justin Marshall, the junior receiver, 6'3", 213. He wasn't the biggest recruit out of high school, the 119th ranked receiver. But so far, in his career, he averages 22 and a half yards per catch. He's a huge deep threat, and he's gotten better as a route runner as well. So I think he's Louisville's best receiver at this moment in time, and I think Malik Cunningham is going to look for him early and often here this season.
I think so too. Marshall's certainly a talented receiver. And he's and I like watching him play. He's fun. He comes in here as last year didn't have the greatest year, only 7 catches, but he's fun. So Malik Cunningham has lots of help here, this is a fun team. It's a bit of an inexperienced team, especially in offense with only got one senior on this starting 11, and that being the center Cole Bentley, but they have they're pretty inexperienced, but I think Scott Satterfield has this team in a good spot.
Yeah, he does. I'm excited to see what the direction of this team. I think it's really going in a good spot, like you said, under Scott Satterfield in his third season with the Louisville Cardinals. On defense, a lot of juniors on this team. Only two seniors, excuse me, in Jaquez Turner, the nose tackle, and CJ Avery, the middle linebacker. So a lot of guys that are going to be here for multiple seasons to try and kind of build something up. But it's a defense that has talent, but maybe missing a little bit of consistency. And I think that's a common theme across this whole team. They're starting to get back to where they were with Lamar Jackson in terms of talent. They have talent. Again, with Lamar, they went 9-4, 8-5, won a lot of big games. They've kind of fallen off the last 2 of the last 3 years, have won 4 or less games. But I think that this team has talent. They're finally getting back to that point. Now it's about putting the consistency together and finding ways to consistently win games on the football field. And I think we could be really, maybe only 1 year away from having Louisville back in the top half of the conference.
Yeah, and it's certainly possible. The schedules, there are some winnable games on here, but there's certainly some tough ones. They open up the year in Atlanta against Ole Miss, and then they have to play UCF, which is a tough school always. Florida State, and then you get BC out of the bye. NC State, you host Clemson. Louisville's all time. 0-6 against Clemson, and then you get Syracuse, Duke, and Kentucky, to end the year. So this is one of the easier ones I think we've seen, but there are some tough ones on here for sure.
There are, no doubt about it. It's not gonna be an easy path by any means for the Louisville Cardinals. The game that I'm really circling on this schedule is that game against Florida State and Wake Forest. Those back-to-back road games, because that's really a tone setter for this team. If they find a way to win one or both of those games, they're hanging with teams that are either at their level or above their level in this conference, and they're starting to take steps in the right direction. But if we see them lose or worse, get kind of dominated in those games, it could be a long year for the Cardinal fans.
Yeah, it could. And I hope that we don't see that because this Louisville team is fun. So I think they need to come out, after that game against Ole Miss, which, Lane Kiffin's team is going to be tough, but, they have a few games after that, with Eastern Kentucky, Wake Forest, Virginia, as well as those last 3 games of the year in Syracuse, Duke, and Kentucky that I think are winnable here.
Yeah. Let's move on to the final team in the Atlantic, the Syracuse Orange. The Orange, it's going to be a tough year, and not because they don't have talent necessarily. They have it's a young team, a lot of sophomores, a couple freshmen starting, a few seniors on defense, but overall, it's a very young team. It's a team that did play a lot together last season, but it's also a team that only won one game last season. So I don't think it's a lack of talent that's going to make this a long year for the Syracuse Orange. It's just, the competition they have to go up against. They have winnable games at the beginning of the year against Ohio, Rutgers, Albany, maybe even Liberty. Maybe they pull off that one, even though Liberty's a really good football team, I think. But then Florida State, Wake Forest, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Boston College, Louisville, NC State, and Pitt. Parker, I don't know if I could say that they're favored to win any of those games in the ACC.
No, this is one of the basement teams of this side of the ACC. They open up the year at Ohio and Athens. So that's going to be a tough team. And then you have Rutgers. Liberty is going to be real tough. Florida State's going to be tough as well. You got to go to Clemson off of Clemson's bye. And then you get VT and Virginia Tech, and then end the year with Louisville and NC State and Pitt. So I think Louisville's a winnable game. Rutgers, I think, is a winnable game, as well as Albany. But all these other ones are a toss up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's move on to the Coastal because I'm excited to talk about this next team, North Carolina. What a job Mac Brown has done in his time with the Tar Heels. His third year back, his 13th year overall with North Carolina, but this is a legendary coach. I'm glad he's back in college football, and he's done just such a good job with this North Carolina team. But Parker, let's be real. This team is good because of Sam Howell, the sophomore quarterback, 6'1", 225. Last season, 38 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, over 3,600 yards in 13 starts. Second team All-ACC, only because first team All-ACC was Trevor Lawrence. This year, he's the best quarterback in this conference. It's close, but it's also not close. This guy is competing with guys like Spencer Rattler and, Caden Slovis and some of these big names in college football. He's not just playing for best quarterback in the ACC. He's a legit candidate for the Heisman.
He is, and he was really good last year. And he had, a 68% passer, 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns. Unbelievable year for Sam Howell last year. And like you said, he would have been the ACC Offensive Player of the Year, I think, if it wasn't for somebody named Trevor Lawrence.
Not a bad player.
Yeah, you might have heard of him. Not sure. I think he's in some place called Jacksonville right now.
Might have been the first overall pick in the NFL draft.
Was he?
I think so. Can't remember though. Maybe it was first pick of the 5th round. I don't remember.
Okay, all right, that makes a little bit more sense. But and of course he's going to have some help. This is a young receiver room with the exception of Bo Corrales. Josh Downs is a freshman. Coffrey Brown is a freshman as well, and then so this it's a pretty inexperienced receiver room with the exception of Corrales, but Sam Howell certainly has some help here. They add the their running back Ty Chandler's the senior transfer from Tennessee, so this offense is going to be fun for the Tar Heels.
They are, and this defense is fun as well. I mean, this offense is good because of Howell, but this defense is good too. They have 2 freshmen starting on that defensive line, and Javari Ritzy and Miles Murphy, but they're very big, and they're ready for ACC football right away. But guys that I expect to see have big years, the sub linebacker, Toman Fox, the senior, 6'3", 265, kind of like an extra defensive lineman just because of how big he is. And another guy that I really love on this defense is their captain in the secondary, Trey Morrison, the junior, 5'10". Last season, he was just unbelievable with 39 tackles and 4 passes defensed. He's like a lot of other safeties in this conference, and that he's an absolute ball hawk. And if you throw the ball anywhere near him, he's probably going to make you pay. So everyone, when they talk about North Carolina, talk about Sam Howell. He's the big dude, and he deserves to be the big dude. But this defense, no pushover either. I'm just going to come out and say it now. We're going to give our picks at the end. This is Clemson's biggest threat.
They are, and they don't have an easy schedule, but there are plenty of winnable games on here. They open up the year against Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech, and then they're home for 2 games in a row with Georgia State and Virginia. They go to Atlanta and take on Georgia Tech, host Duke, Florida State, Miami, Florida, 3 in a row. Go to South Bend and take on the Fighting Irish.
That'll be a
host
great
Wake. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. They host Pitt, or they go to Pitt. They host Wofford and they end the year, at NC State. So winnable games on here, but there are some tough ones for sure.
I'm excited for that game to end the year, Parker. We talked about NC State. We think they're right there with Boston College, fighting for the second best team in the Atlantic. That NC State team, not bad at all. And they have a team that I'm very excited for with an experienced receiving core. And then this North Carolina team with Sam Howell, that could be a fun shootout game. And it could have a lot of, implications to it. North Carolina could be fighting for a spot in the ACC championship game. NC State could be fighting for, a higher bowl game. And it's already a rivalry. So I'm really excited already in late November for North Carolina and NC State. I think that could end up being a really good game.
Yeah, I think so too. It's going to be a fun one. One thing that I'm surprised to see here is they don't play Clemson in the regular season, which I think is on purpose to anticipate that both these teams are going to be in the ACC championship.
Yeah, and I think they're probably already – the ACC is probably already starting to make posters of, Uiagalelei versus Howell ACC championship Saturday night, 8 p.m. on ESPN. So I'm sure they'd love – I'm sure the ACC and college football would love nothing more than for Uiagalelei to be an absolute star as a freshman and for Sam Howell to, win the Heisman and be the projected number 1 overall pick, because that would make the ACC championship must-watch TV.
Yeah, it would, and I think this is possibly one of the the better quarterbacks that NC State has had, or no, I'm sorry, that North Carolina's had in a while.
Ever. I think ever. I'm trying to think back on North Carolina football. They don't have a ton of history of being an ACC championship caliber team. I know he's only a sophomore, but off the top of my head, just with the talent he has, with the hype he has surrounding him, I don't think I've ever heard of another North Carolina quarterback with, Heisman hype and with, could be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. He, when it's all said and done, he has another year, maybe 2 more years at North Carolina. But when it's all said and done, he might be the best quarterback they've ever had.
Yeah, it's possible, and he's fun. And I'm excited to see what North Carolina does.
Me too. Let's get to Miami. This Miami team is also a very fun football team, and it's because they got their quarterback back. Derek King decided to come back, use his extra year of eligibility, and that's big for this team because Derek King is an absolute stud. 5,000 yards and 19 starts over the last 2 years with 50 touchdowns, and as well as almost 1,500 rushing yards. Derek King is a dude that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He makes a lot of big plays with his legs. He makes a lot of big plays with his arm. He was second team All ACC last year. He's really, really good, Parker. He's like the closest thing I think college football has right now to, that Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson type, and the fact that he can run, but he also has a really good arm. And Derek King's what makes this Miami team really, really good. They obviously have other pieces, but Miami, I'm sure, Miami and head coach Manny Diaz were, screaming like a teenage girl when they heard Derek King was coming back for one more ride.
Yeah, I would be.
You definitely would.
Right. And so, yeah, Derek King is a great player. He was great at Houston, and then he comes in last year and made an immediate impact. He threw for 2,600 yards last year with 23 touchdowns. So, he's a talented player for sure. Senior here for the Hurricanes, and then they have their their running back Cameron Harris, the junior 5'10", 210 here for the Hurricanes. He had 700 yards last year with 10 touchdowns, so he's talented as well. And I love the receivers on this team. You have the senior Mike Harley, 5'11", 180. The redshirt freshman Peyton, and that's 6'1", 195, and then Charleston Rambo, another really awesome name. In this conference is Charleston Rambo, the junior receiver at 6'1", 175. So this is a fun team for sure.
I'm excited to watch Charleston Rambo. This is a guy that was a 4-star recruit out of high school. He had a lot of hype surrounding him. Went to Oklahoma 2 years, had 1,200 yards, but he averaged 15 yards a catch. He is a deep threat, and Miami needs a deep threat. Mike Harley, more of the route runner, kind of short, intermediate route kind of guy. Jeremiah Payton has a lot of potential. Big-time recruit for Manny Diaz, 16th ranked receiver in the country, but he doesn't have a ton of reps yet. So Charleston Rambo, he could very well be, their big deep threat this season. And that was a big get for Manny Diaz to get him from Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was. And, he's a talented player for sure. And this defense I'm looking at, they're somewhat of a younger defense. Of course they have, the returning free safety, their leading tackler last year in Bubba Bolden. With 74 tackles last year, to throw in an interception. And then, and they have another guy that I'm looking at, big player here up front, the nose tackle, Nesta Jade Silvera, the junior 6'2", 305, talented player there as well. So he had 35 tackles last year. So I like this Miami defense a lot.
I do too. I'm really excited to see the redshirt freshman defensive end, Jafari Harvey, 6'4", 250 pounds, but he started one game last year, Parker, but in, just limited third down, sparingly playing, 18 tackles and 5 TFLs. He's finally going to get a chance to start this year, and I think he could easily be their best edge rusher. So I'm really excited to see this guy, Jafari Harvey. And like you said, Bubba Bolden, the leader of that secondary. And if you've watched any Miami football, you know about the the infamous turnover chain. And Bubba Bolden usually rocks the turnover chain more than almost anyone.
Yeah, he does. And this schedule's fun too. And no tougher test to open up the year in Atlanta against Alabama. And then you get App State, who's not a pushover team by any means.
Not at all.
And then, how lucky are they to have 4 home games in a row after going to Atlanta? They get App State, Michigan State, Central Connecticut, and Virginia all at home before taking a bye and then going to Chapel Hill to take on the Tar Heels. NC State at Pitt, Georgia Tech and then they go to Florida State, host Virginia Tech, and then go to Duke. So, they have winnable games here. I think, Central Connecticut's one they can win. I think Pitt they can beat, as well as Virginia Tech and Duke. So I expect this team to be better than most people think. I think they can beat Michigan State as well.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Big Ten here soon, but I think Michigan State's a winnable game. So this is gonna be a fun Miami Hurricane team.
I think Michigan State's a rebuilding team, so I think that's definitely a winnable game. I think I don't like their odds against Alabama. I'm not gonna lie. But I think after that, their next 4 games very winnable. They could go into that North Carolina game 4-1, and I think North Carolina is the best team in the Coastal, but Miami's not insanely far behind them. And if they go into that game 4-1, having played a really tough Alabama team already, North Carolina could potentially be on upset alert, especially because Miami will be coming off a bye week, and North Carolina might, be dealing with some injuries or something like that. Miami could be the fresher team. So Miami really has a chance to make a statement out of their bye week, and I think we'll see what happens, obviously. But North Carolina is really, really good, and I'm really, really excited to watch them, but they're definitely not untouchable.
No, they're not. And this Miami team, I think, is one that has the talent and the caliber to overcome a team like North Carolina.
No doubt about it. So let's move on to the Pittsburgh Panthers. The Panthers are led by Pat Narduzzi, who's done a really solid job with this team. But they have Kenny Pickett, the senior. It feels like he's been at Pitt for like 8 years. But He is back for his senior season. He's in his career, 27 starts, almost 6,000 yards, 26 touchdowns. Not a huge numbers guy, but he's your stereotypical won't win you a ton of games, won't lose you any games. He's a game manager. He's a guy that makes the smart plays, makes the plays that keep the ball moving. He doesn't take a ton of big deep shots, but he also doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So I'm excited to see. I mean, he gets one last ride, but I'm really excited to see this tailback Parker Israel Obnikanda. I probably just obliterated his last name, but he's going to start as a true freshman because they like this kid a lot. He is very, very quick, very, very shifty, and he's also 210 pounds. So if you get in his way and he can't get around you, he'll go over you.
Yeah, he will. And I think that's one way to do it. And so this team's going to be fun. Kenny Pickett comes back for his senior year. It's like you said, it's like his fourth senior year that he's had.
Facts.
And then their freshman running back. I'm going to butcher his name too, Israel Abnikanda.
I think you did it better than I did, though. So there you go.
I hope that I said that right, and if I didn't, if Israel's listening, I apologize. But yeah, this team's going to be fun. I love these receivers on this team. You have Jordan Addison, the freshman, 6 foot 175. Taysier Mack, the senior, Addison was their leading receiver last year, but they have Taysier Mack who had 300 yards last year. And then they have another wide receiver with a fantastic name, Shockey Jaquez Lewis, the junior, 6 foot 185. So this wide receiver room's fun, and then they have they're a strong defense as well. So I love this team.
I do too, and what a great name in Shockey. That's a great name. But this team's really, really solid. I think they're a tier below North Carolina and Miami. If I'm ranking the teams in the Coastal, I think North Carolina and Miami are honestly on the same tier. I give a slight edge to North Carolina, so it'd be like A- and like B+ kind of. I think they're close enough where I'd put them on the same tier, but it's very ever so slightly. I think North Carolina is better, but Pitt is like solid B. It's not like it's a huge drop off. I think Pitt definitely can hang with these teams. And I love how they constructed this defense. A lot of experience in the secondary, a little bit younger up front, but a lot of recruits that Narduzzi's very, very excited about. And if this offense can be as good as I think they can be, this defense is going to get a chance to learn as the year goes on, especially, with that start to the season, which isn't insanely tough. So a chance for this team to grow and gel the first half of the year, get off to some positive momentum, and then get ready for some big games down the stretch.
Yeah, this defense is fun. Like you said, I love I love the way Damari Mathis plays at the corner position, and then they have a fun schedule as well. They open up the year again. They host UMass, then travel to Knoxville and take on the Vols. And then Western Michigan, New Hampshire, at Georgia Tech, bye week at VT, Virginia Tech, host Clemson, host Miami, Florida, at Duke, host NC or North Carolina, host Virginia, and then end the year against the Orange of Syracuse. So this schedule's fun.
It is. Let's move on to the Virginia Tech Hokies. We got 4 more teams to do today. Virginia Tech, we'll go a little bit quicker here. Braxton Burmeister, the quarterback. He has not a ton of experience, only 4 starts, 2 touchdowns in his career, but he's going to get a chance. He waited his turn. He's going to get a chance to start this year. But their main guy, Parker, and this is not a secret. This is one of the best running backs in the ACC. Very small, very shifty, very, very fast. I'm talking about Raheem Blackshear. This guy's an absolute stud, and he's going to be the key for the Vatek offense.
Yeah, he is. This guy's fun. Had 200 yards, last year to go along with 2 touchdowns. So this guy's fun. Like you said, very short, very shifty, but he's quick and he's fun to watch.
He is. Let's go to the defense really quick. Just a couple guys that I'm excited to look out for this year. Dorian Strong, the true freshman, 6 foot, 175. He gets a chance to start for a Va-Tech team that I think can hang with some big boys in this conference. But he's going to be a true freshman corner going up against some really good receivers. So we'll see what he does. But another guy I really love is this middle linebacker. The sophomore, he's already earned a lot of respect, Alan Tisdale. He was a decently high recruit out of college, but 52 tackles last season, 5.5 for a loss. He's without a doubt one of the leaders of this defense.
He is, and this defense is fun. They play hard and they play quick, so they're going to be a fun team, or a fun defense to watch under Justin Fuente. And the schedule's fun too. They open up the year hosting North Carolina, Middle Tennessee. Go to Morgantown and take on West Virginia. And then they have Richmond, a bye week, host Notre Dame, host Pitt, host Syracuse, travel to Georgia Tech, travel to Boston, and take on BC, host Duke, and then the final 2 games, on the road against Miami and Virginia.
No doubt. And I'm not saying this is likely. I'm not saying this is something that I think will happen, but talk about, putting the whole conference on notice. You want, some momentum to start the year. You got North Carolina coming to your house, and imagine the ripple effect that would go through the ACC if Virginia Tech pulled off that win to start the year.
Yeah, and it's gonna, cause North Carolina to get into a bit of a frenzy here if that happens.
It will for sure. Let's move on to Georgia Tech, the triple option offense of this conference. They're led by a true freshman, Jeff Sims, but this is a big dude for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, 6'4", 216. So they're gonna have a big guy running this triple option. Jameer, is that how you say it? Jameer, I think. Jameer Gibbs, the freshman at running back, 5'11", but he was a big-time recruit, the number 29 running back in the country. He's going to be a nice fit for this team. Their receiver is pretty small, but they don't really throw the ball a lot. But their offensive line, very, very strong because they do run the ball a lot. I'm looking at their tackles, Parker. The freshman Jordan Williams at right, 6'6", 341, and the senior Devin Cochran at left, 6'7", and 320, the transfer from Vandy. So big tackles protecting freshman quarterback and freshman receiver. A lot of potential in the backfield, and they're getting the best protection that maybe we've seen so far today.
Yeah, they are, and it's fun. This is one of the bigger offensive lines that we've seen, not only in this conference, but possibly in the entire Power 5. You have, Ryan Johnson, the right guard, 6'6", 325. And then those 2 tackles you just talked about with Williams and Cochran.
Yeah, we get to their defense. A guy that I really, really am just absolutely hyped to see this season is maybe their best recruit of the class, and that's going to be the defensive end Kevin Harris, redshirt freshman. He was the number 10 edge in the class, 6'4", 240 pounds. He's going to start right away, as he should. And he's going to get paired up with another guy that I like a lot, the defensive end, the senior Antonius Clayton, who's has 9 tackles and 2 sacks in 5 starts last year. He was another highly crowded recruit in his time, 4 years ago. But he's going to be a big mentor for Kevin Harris, and Kevin Harris looks like he could be a star on this defense. It's very rare that Georgia Tech gets a top 10 recruit, and Kevin Harris is just that.
Yeah, he is. And Kevin Harris is fun. He's certainly a talented player. They've been looking for, some talented players on defense, and Harris is one of those guys, like you said, one of their best recruits that they've had in quite some time.
Absolutely. Let's look at the schedule really quick. It's maybe the toughest one we've seen all year. It's really hard. They have it ranked as number 3 in the country, Parker. They start the year with Northern Illinois, who, a lot of people at home are probably thinking Northern Illinois, that's not that bad. Northern Illinois is a really good team out of the MAC. Kennesaw State might be their easiest game all year. At Clemson, followed by North Carolina, followed by Pitt, followed by Duke, followed by a bye week. But after the bye week, Virginia Tech, Miami, Boston College, Notre Dame, and Georgia. My goodness. This Georgia Tech team is by no means 3-4 win bad, but they might only win 3 or 4 games just because of how tough that schedule is.
Yeah, Jeff Collins has put together one of their toughest schedules I think possibly Georgia Tech has ever had. This one's really tough, especially those last, 6 or 7. It's insanely tough, and then you start the year, games 3, 4, 5 against Clemson, North Carolina, and Pitt. This one's one of the toughest ones we've seen for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough. If Georgia Tech gets to a bowl game this year, they beat some really good teams. So we'll see what they're able to accomplish in the third year of Jeff Collins. But let's move on to Virginia, the Virginia Cavaliers. They're led by quarterback Brennan Armstrong, the sophomore. He, in his freshman season last year, had 2,100 yards, 18 touchdowns, 11 picks, a little bit turnover prone, but that's what you expect from a young guy. A guy I really like, Parker, on this team is a guy with a lot of size, and that's I got to zoom in. We're getting late into the night, but is it Keaton? I'm gonna go with Keaton. But Keaton Thompson, the junior, 6'4", 215, another big recruit that went to Virginia, the number 20 receiver in his class. He's only started 4 games, but he's averaging almost 15 yards a catch, and he's a big play threat for sure. And he's still pretty young, but by the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's the number 1 receiver at Virginia.
I wouldn't either. This guy's fun to watch. Another guy I'm looking at is their big tight end, Jelani Woods, 6'7", 280. He's a load at the tight end position. And then their right tackle, Ryan Swoboda, the junior, 6'10", 325. They got some big guys on this offense. And then on defense, a guy I'm looking at, is their linebacker, Nick Johnson, the sophomore, was their leading tackler last year with 105 tackles. Wasn't even close in the tackle category here for Virginia. So this team is fun. I'm loving. I love Nick Johnson and how he plays. And then they have, of course, a very experienced secondary here. Anthony Johnson Jr., Nick Grant Sr., Devontae Cross Sr., Joey Blunt Sr. So this is a very strong defense here for the Virginia Cavaliers with one of the best named head coaches in college football in Bronco Mendenhall.
It is, yeah, no doubt about it. And Virginia hasn't had a losing season since 2017, excuse me. 3 straight years of getting to bowl games, and that's impressive. So, if we talk about their schedule, it's by no means as hard as Georgia Tech. They do have a tough game against Illinois. That'll be a good test against a Big Ten team. Kind of a middle. I don't know if I'd call middle of the pack or slightly below middle of the pack. They're like C minus tier in the ACC, and Illinois is probably C minus tier in the Big Ten. So it's a pretty good matchup. North Carolina on the road is going to be hard. Miami on the road is going to be hard. BYU is going to be a tough game sandwiched in there as well as Notre Dame, Pitt, and Va-Tech. So those last 3 games pretty tough. There's a couple tough ones in there as well, but if they play their cards right, I think this is a schedule that they can get to a bowl game.
Yeah, I think so too. You have some tough tests here. You have, like you said, Illinois, North Carolina, Miami, Florida is going to be tough, as well as BYU. And then you have Notre Dame, Pitt, and Virginia Tech to end the year. So this is, by no means easy, but definitely some winnable games on here.
Our final team we're going to talk about today is the Duke Blue Devils. Duke is led by the sophomore quarterback, Gunnar Holmberg. Parker, if you're a quarterback in college football named Gunnar, I already think you're a stud.
I'm with you. That's awesome.
It's like, that's like being, a pitcher named, like Blaze, or a hitter named Homer, or, a basketball player named like Swish or something like that. Like, I feel like, there's certain names that just are intimidating when you walk in the room.
Right. Gunner's a good name for a quarterback, or if you're a golfer named Shooter, that's awesome.
Right. Didn't we see a running back earlier this summer named Tank?
Yeah, there's a guy named Tank. We had a guy just today named Bam. They're just some guys who are named, and they're destined to play a certain sport.
No doubt about it. I love Duke's receiving core because of their size. These 2 receivers that start on the outside, Jake Bobo, a junior, 6'5", 215, not a huge recruit out of high school, but he's huge. And he's a guy that can go up and get it almost over almost anyone. Then their other receiver, sophomore Eli Pancol, he was a much higher recruit, 6'3", 200 pounds. So these two guys, really good size, and they make Holmberg's life a lot easier because they win a lot of one-on-one matchups with corners.
Yeah, they do. And they're going to be fun. Couple guys I'm looking at on this offense is their tackles. Casey Holman, the sophomore. I'm sorry, John Gillette, I think is his name. The right tackle 6'7", 295, and then their left tackle Graham Barton, the true freshman, 6'6", 315. So got some big guys on the edges of this offensive line for Gunnar Holmberg and David Cutcliffe. So this team is fun, and then of course you have this defense led by their returning linebacker and Shaka Hayward led the team in tackles last year with 80 tackles. And then you have another guy coming in here at the linebacker position for David Cutcliffe here, and that's Shaid Stevens. And then this it's a relatively inexperienced defense here, but I think they're going to be a fun team.
Yeah, that's what concerns me about Duke is they only have 6 returning starters on both offense and defense. It's a young team, a lot of sophomores, a lot of freshmen, a lot of redshirt freshmen on this defense that are going to start. A couple juniors sprinkled in there that are going to be the leaders. Jamerick Woods is a guy I like a lot. He plays kind of like a hybrid role where he plays a little corner, a little bit of a safety. They have him listed on the depth chart as a rover, but that's basically what he does. A little bit of safety, a little bit of corner. He'll even come up and be a small, kind of quicker linebacker sometimes. But I like him a lot. He played 3 years at Michigan, just transferred to Duke, and I think he's going to make a big impact with the Blue Devils in year one. This team has one of the lighter schedules we've seen in the Coastal Division. They take on Charlotte, North Carolina, A&T, Northwestern, and Kansas to start the year. I'd say that's a 3-1 start, Parker. I think they'd lose to Northwestern, but I think the other 3 they can come away with wins. North Carolina will be tough. Georgia Tech and Virginia, I think, are both winnable. I don't know if they win them, but I think they are winnable. And then down the stretch, even with Wake Forest, Pitt, Louisville, throw a couple more winnable games in there. Everything goes right for this team. We could see them in a bowl game, but I'd say they're probably still a year away.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm with you. I think Northwestern is going to be tough. I think they lose that one. North Carolina, I think they lose as well. But all the rest are very winnable, I think, with the exception of Miami here. So this is going to be a fun team. And they struggled last year. We're 2-9, but I think they have the talent to be great this year.
So let's do our predictions here for the standings at the end. We're going to do the 7 in the Atlantic, 7 in the Coastal, and then we're going to predict the ACC championship game and the overall conference champion. So we'll start with the Atlantic. Clemson's 1. That's pretty easy. I'm going to go Boston College 2. I think they make the jump. I think it's a big year from Phil Jurkovec, and I think them having the quarterback, the young quarterback, I think that offense is just as good as NC State's receiving core, which is really strong, and I think their defense is slightly better. So I'm going to go with BC 2, NC State 3. I think Florida State takes a step forward. I have them 4, Wake Forest 5, Louisville 6, and Syracuse 7.
Yeah, I'm taking Clemson 1 as well. I think NC State's 2. Boston College 3. I think Florida State's going to be 4. Wake Forest 5, Louisville 6, Syracuse 7.
All right. In the Coastal, I do like North Carolina to win the Coastal. I'm going to go with Miami 2, Pitt 3. I think that's correct. They're top 3. I'm going to keep Virginia Tech at 4, but I'm going to move Virginia up to 5. I think Georgia Tech has the potential to be better, but that schedule is just absolutely brutal. And I think Virginia has a chance to make a bowl game because their schedule is much lighter. So I'm going to go Virginia 4 or 5, excuse me. Georgia Tech 6 and Duke 7. I think Duke is trending in the right direction, but I still think they're a year away.
I think North Carolina's 1 as well. Miami will be 2. I think Virginia Tech is 3. Pitt will be 4. Virginia's 5, Georgia Tech is 6, Duke is 7.
All right. And then that brings us to the ACC championship game for both of us. It's going to be North Carolina and Clemson. I love Sam Howell. I think he really does have a shot at the Heisman this year. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. He's got swag. He's got arm strength. He's got accuracy. He's got mobility. He's got fitting, arm angles. But at the end of the day, I think Clemson still wins the ACC championship.
I do too. I just think experience plays a huge factor in those big championship games, and Clemson certainly has that. I'm looking for a big year from Sam Howell. I think he's going to be a Heisman favorite, along with Rattler and Slovis among others. But I think Clemson just has the experience, and experience wins over in the ACC championship game.
No doubt about it. Well, because it's Friday and because we're generous, we went an extra half hour today. So it's 1 to 3:30. So you're welcome. But it was a blast. Today's show was great. MLB trades, still waiting for a couple bombshells to drop. Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, potentially Jose Barrios, potentially Craig Kimbrell. Still a lot of big names that could drop. But we had a lot of fun trades to talk about today. You get to go to bed now knowing that Scherzer and Trey Turner are Dodgers. And I'd ask that you try to think about that and not think about Josiah Gray in a Nats jersey. That'll probably be bad for your mental health.
Yeah, it probably would be. I'm going to try to stay positive here for the sake of my mental health. But it was a great day today. Good show. Had a lot of fun. So more trades hopefully. Later this afternoon. So
if not, folks, turn on pass and tweet notifications because you're going to want them.
Yes. It's how, the both of us get all of our instant information, regarding baseball is Wef Wasson.
So, I was going to say, we don't call him Wef Wasson for no reason. My man takes right. W's all the time.
Exactly. So, that's how we know so quickly. I literally looked down at my phone. Jeff Passan, trade.
Exactly. I was in line at Taco Bell last night and checked my phone while I was waiting in line. No, I was not driving. I don't text and drive. But checked my phone while I was waiting in the drive-thru. Notification from Jeff Passan. Schwarber's a Red Sox. Texted you, and within 2 minutes of that story breaking, we both knew that Schwarber was a Red Sox. That's why we know so fast, because Jeff Passan is the GOAT.
He is. He's the Adam Schefter of baseball. If you guys aren't baseball fans out there, he's the Adrian Wojnarowski of baseball. He's the Schefter of baseball. So he's the best. So, lots of fun today. More fun, coming up next week. We're going to talk about how are these trades going to impact these teams even more.
Yeah. Something I want to do on either Monday or Tuesday. We'll figure out which day works better. But after all the trades have been made, how do we see the standings now? Do we see teams jumping teams? Do we see teams falling off because they didn't make enough moves? It could only be, 5-6 trades in your team's division or whatever, but it could change everything.
It could. And, how do these trades impact lineups? How do these trades impact standings? And we're going to start to see some of these debuts of the guys with their new teams. So how do they do in their debuts? How are they going to impact the lineups? So it's going to be a fun few weeks.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will be glued to my TV for Max Scherzer's first start as a Dodger. There's no doubt about it. So, Parker, it was a blast today. We will see you all next week. Thank you for hanging out with us here on WWSU 106.9 FM and our YouTube channel. Hope you have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday. For Parker Testa back in Noblesville, I am Shea Neal saying so long and keep it real. What a fun week we had. We'll see you Monday.